no one genuinely believed we had done anything wrong.
Team Penske IndyCar driver Josef Newgarden had a season-opening win at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg disqualified this week when it was discovered that he had used his car's push-to-pass illegally during restarts. The feature gives the cars a 50 horsepower boost but can't be used after restarts until the cars have passed a specific point on the track. His car was running software that had been loaded into the computer for testing, but not replaced with the proper version before the start of the season. Newgarden claims he didn't realize he was breaking the rules and addressed the media on Friday ahead of the Children's of Alabama Grand Prix to tell his side of the story.
You know, with regards to the St. Petersburg race ruling, I think at this point, it's really important to look at the facts of what happened, and the facts are extremely clear. You know, there's no doubt that we were in breach of the rules at St. Petersburg. You know, I used push to pass at an unauthorized time twice on two different restarts, and there's really nothing else to it other than that those are the rules, and we did not adhere to them. I think it's, for me, what's really important about that too is, there's only one person sitting in the car. It's just me. And so that responsibility and the use of the push to pass in the correct manner falls completely on me. It is my responsibility to know the rules and the regulations at all points and to make sure that I get that right. And with that regard, I failed my team miserably. It's like a complete failure from my side to get that right. It's my job as the leader of the two car to not make mistakes like that. You cannot make a mistake at this level in that situation. There's no room for it. There's no room for that type of mistake anywhere, or certainly not at the top level of motorsports. And I don't want to hide from that. It's, for me, it's an embarrassing situation to have to go through. To see what's transpired. It's demoralizing in a lot of ways. And, there's nothing that I can say that changes, the fact of what happened. I mean, it's pretty clear. So, that's why I say I think the facts are most important right now. I think that's what really matters. I also think the truth is important. And I think that there can be space for both of those things. So, if there's anything that I wanted to come say too, I want to deeply apologize to our fans, our partners, my teammates, the competitors that I race against, anybody that's in our community. I've worked my entire career to hold myself to an incredibly high standard. And, clearly I've fallen very short of that in this respect. And, once again, I mean, I can't overstate. It's a difficult thing to wrestle with. It's very, it's a very embarrassing process to go through. And, I hope we can find a way forward after this. I mean, that's really all you can do is try and find a way forward after the fact. So I just wanted to come here and state that. And, I appreciate everybody's time and let me speak.
Your three pushes of push to pass on restarts at St. Pete, 3 seconds, 2.4, and 3.6 seconds on lap 72. Did you feel those instances in the car?
Oh, of course. Yes. No, I mean, I purposely was hitting the button. The tough part is the intent. And I don't think that, intent matters at this point. The facts are, when are you allowed to use push to pass? And the rules state that you're not allowed to use it until the alt-start finish line. And I didn't. So yeah, it's very easy to tell when you're using the button. I know when I push the button, it's not anything that I would try and hide behind. It's also very obvious when you're using the button. It comes up on my dash. There's onboard cameras. People see the telemetry updates. It's not something that you would hide from, and I'm not trying to hide from it. I know exactly when I push the button. So yeah, it's something you feel every single time. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. It's a very obvious thing.
So then after the race, are you conscious in that moment in the days following St. Pete that you hit the button when it shouldn't have been working? And If so, did you do anything, talk to anyone about that feeling?
The tricky thing about this whole situation is I didn't know I did anything wrong until Monday after Long Beach. It's the first time I heard that I broke rules. And it's I knew if getting to this part was going to be difficult for me. You guys you can call me every name in the book. You can call me incompetent, call me an idiot, call me an asshole, call me, stupid, whatever you want to call me. But I'm not a liar. And the story that I know, which is the truth, is almost too convenient to be believable. And so to answer your question, no, I didn't leave St. Pete thinking we pulled something over on somebody. I didn't know that we did something wrong until this week. And then I've had to wrestle with the fact that, how do you explain a situation to people? I know what happened. I know why it happened, and I don't think it's very believable. Even when I try and tell the story back, I don't think any of us believe it'll be believable to somebody, but it's the truth. So no, just to answer your question, I didn't know I did something wrong in St. Pete, and maybe to elaborate on that, because there would be a follow up. How did you know you didn't do something wrong? The key difference on the 2 car, which is important to understand, is that somehow, some way, we convinced ourselves that there was a rule change to restart specifically with overtake usage. And you say, well, how do you come up with this? That's never happened before. The only place that this got introduced was with the thermal exhibition race. It's the only time in my time in IndyCar where we've actually had a legitimate legal change of the push to pass system, where it's going to be operable at a time other than, at the alt start finish line. It was going to be usable in qualifying too. There was a lot of discussion around it, and we somehow genuinely believed and convinced ourselves that at St. Pete, the rule was now you can use it immediately on restarts. You don't have to wait till the alt start finish line. It's going to be available immediately. And I even wanted the team to remind me of this so that I didn't forget. I'm like, well, if whenever you get something new as a driver, you're always like, please remind me. It's easy for me to forget this stuff with everything going on inside the car. And I specifically asked for that too. We all knew about that. And so what's the craziest part of the story is the software issue that no one knew about just perpetuated that belief even further. So then you go through St. Pete, you go through thermal where it's an actual change and everybody's using it. And then you go to Long Beach and it's still in the car. And the first time that any of us hear about this software issue or mistake is of warm-up. And the even crazier part of that is, even when you learn about the software issue that no one knew about and it was fixed, I still believed the procedural difference on restarts was in applied for Long Beach. I tried to do the exact same thing leading the race at Long Beach. I even pushed the button. I came over the radio. I said, hey, the overtake's not working correctly. I said it throughout the whole first lap because it wasn't working right. I mean, I don't know how or why in your right mind you would do that. Why would I, did I try and come up with a conspiracy and then cover it's not. The truth is somehow we got that mixed up and it somehow got entangled with the mistake and it's created some ridiculously unbelievable storyline now. But the facts of the matter are I used it illegally. I wasn't allowed to. And, I can't change that. Whatever I say going forward will not change those facts. And, it kills me that it doesn't. I wish I could go back in time and somehow, reverse all this, but I can't. And, I thought about this a lot. I was like, I don't want to put out a statement. Two things matter to me: accountability, and we have to be held accountable for any sort of mistake, whether you meant to do it or not. You got to be held accountable, and the truth matters to me. And today I want to be held accountable for what I did and the actions I took, and I want to tell people the truth. And those are the two things that I wanted to achieve this morning. So, if I do that, I can leave here and I can feel good about anything going forward.
My last question, and I'll cede the floor. Can you kind of paint the picture for us how you found out about what transpired, that it was against the rules this week? And just maybe take us through your mental process and how you've dealt with this. I know it's been an emotional couple days for the whole team, for Roger, for Tim, for your other two teammates, and I'm sure the folks on your car as well.
Yeah, it's been a weird week, a very weird week. I learned about this on Monday. I stayed in California with my family. We were there till Wednesday. I had a conversation with a couple different people on Monday, which was the first time that I was able to put two and two together. That one, the software issue, was a problem that we didn't know about, and that also we were incorrect. We didn't have the procedure correct on what was allowed and not allowed now on restarts. And it's crazy how this works. When you do something wrong and you didn't know you did something wrong, it doesn't hit you immediately. You get told that and you think, oh wow, that's crazy to hear that this is what's happening. And then you move to Tuesday and it starts to really hit you that you're like, oh, this is a big problem now. This is a really big problem. And then it comes out on Wednesday and there's a whole different set of emotions that come into play with that, because it's a true reality and it's something you can't control. None of us can control this. None of us can change it. And it's all, I don't know how to describe it other than that. I've had to, I've looked at everything. I don't know how you can't. I know what's been said. I know how people feel, and you just have to. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You just have to live with it.
Joseph, how have you worked through this mentally and emotionally to be able to deal with just the devastation that comes with this announcement?
Well, I feel better now. I did think about this. I didn't have anything prepared today, and I didn't want to have it prepared. I didn't want to rehearse anything. Of course, I've thought about it. How could you not? I've been thinking about this nonstop for 48 hours. I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning. I couldn't fall back asleep. I was like, man, I got to be rested to go speak to these guys. And I just wanted to. The truth is easy. It's so easy to just tell the truth, and I wanted to do that today. And I've left a little bit of room for this weekend. I've tried to study and do my normal deal. So I'm hoping I'm going to be ready to go.
And also, the month of May is supposed to be a very joyous month for you as the defending winner of the Indianapolis 500. In some ways, how do you keep this from affecting some of that joy that you were going to have returning to the Speedway?
Well, I'm still happy. I mean, look, I got the best job in the world, and I'm excited. I'm still excited. I'm excited for this weekend. It should be good.
Obviously, this has created a ripple through the paddock. How do you earn the trust back of your competitors?
I don't know. I don't know how you do that. It's important to state, and I think it's the truth. I don't know that anybody is going to believe what I've told you here today, and that's okay. I mean, I think it's a crazy set of circumstances to try and just reason with. It's certainly not going to come from words. I mean, it's just going to take repetitive action. That's all you can do is just repetitive action, and hopefully I can stand on that in the future. So however long it takes or how many years, if I'm given the time, I'll just try and earn it through action.
At St. Petersburg, when you were getting on the button again, with you misunderstanding the procedure, et cetera, did you presume everybody else was also using it, or did you think you had a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, we all use it differently at different times. I didn't know what everybody else was doing, but if this is a procedure change, the one thing you don't want to do is not be on top of that. Because if someone else is using it, then you are at a disadvantage to not use it yourself. So I assumed, people would be using it. I mean, why wouldn't they? Especially in those type of situations, you want to make sure you're covering it. If you have a good jump, you wouldn't use it. If you have a bad jump, you are going to use it. These are the things you think about, and I would have assumed that everyone would have been, under that same operating style, if you will.
In the data, looking at the data after the race, were you surprised that Will didn't use it in those situations and that Scott used it sparingly, or did you guys have a conversation?
I that's not data that you, just to be really clear for everyone here, that's not data that you look at after the race. I don't look at, Well, first off, I didn't review any of that stuff after the race. I mean, it was a good weekend. I did my notes. I watched the race back. I didn't assume anything was off or anything was different. I mean, there's a reason that Will didn't use it. The only person in car that was under belief that there was a rule change was the 2 car. There's a reason Scott only used it 1.9 seconds too. I mean, he truly is just hitting it out of habit, which does happen. That's also true. I mean, I think I hit the thing 29 times is what's the stat that Tim said? That's all true data. I mean, I've used it it's not like, oh, we've also had jokes where you're like, oh, the overtake button, just hit it and maybe it'll work. That's also a true joke that's been stated, but out of habit, it's not unusual for people to hit it before it's activated. I mean, it's very easy to do. I mean, typically that happens right before the start finish line. Maybe you hit it early, right? And you get a denied press and you have to hit it again. That's the most typical case for it. So it's not unusual for someone to just hit it accidentally or hit it out of habit. I mean, that was my first question this week. It was my very first question. I said, okay, let's go back to the side, because I didn't link these things, right? At all. On Sunday morning of Long Beach, I just assumed, I was like, oh, well, we had an issue. I'm learning about this an hour before the race. Okay. No one panicked. There was no deep dive into this. No, I still didn't know that there was anything amiss, certainly not from St. Pete. So, we fix all that. We go through the race. When I learned there was a real issue here, I go, how is this possible? Like who safeguards this stuff? And then I learned after the fact that this has been possible for anybody at any point. So it's also not complex. It's very simple. If you break down exactly what happened, it's extremely simple what happened. And anybody could, it kind of baffled me that anybody could have done that. There was no sort of checks and balance in place. And I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody. It doesn't absolve us from anything. But I was shocked to learn that there was no safeguard in place. It was just that this could have happened at any point and no one knew about it.
Do you think the disqualification is a fair penalty, and do you think that is the right precedent to set from the series?
Yes, absolutely. One thing I didn't state, which was important for me to also say, is I do believe the integrity of the series is absolutely paramount. The series has to hold everybody accountable, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the intent. And they've done the right thing, by trying to throw the book at us, and they should. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter what the intent was. If you broke a rule, you broke a rule, and you should suffer the consequences. And the series has to uphold that standard. And so it makes me proud that I'm a part of this series that does that. That's a series I want to be a part of. So I think the penalty's fair. It's crushing. I mean, I'm going to look back on it too and say, well, I don't want that win on my books either. I don't want it. I'm glad they're taking it away. If it was tainted, then I don't want to be near it. And unfortunately it is, I can't reverse that in time, and it's good what's happened. I'm really pleased by it.
And have you spoken to Roger about the situation, and maybe just detail how he's reacted to it?
I have spoken to him. I've spoken to him once, and he did not take it well whatsoever, as you could imagine. I was interrogated at first. And it's I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I've not met somebody with higher integrity than that man. And I mean that. So, yeah, it wasn't taken well.